The Night King is coming to Winterfell with his army. What does he want? Does he just want to kill everybody? In part 1, I described the mechanics of time travel. It is possible to change the past, and the weirwood trees themselves are what enable time travel. And in part 2, I theorized that the reason that the weirwood trees are so powerful is because every single weirwood is actually a Greenseer, just like the three-eyed raven. This means that there is a Greenseer in the Crypts of Winterfell, and it is likely that this Greenseer is the real villain of the story, the one who has been messing with the timeline to manipulate all the characters. Another big clue that the Crypts of Winterfell will be important to the end of the story is that Jon has a recurring nightmare about going down into the crypts. Last night he had dreamt the Winterfell dream again. He was wandering the empty castle, searching for his father, descending into the crypts. Only this time the dream had gone further than before. In the dark he'd heard the scrape of stone on stone. When he turned, he saw that the vaults were opening, one after the other. As the dead kings came stumbling from their cold black graves, Jon had woken in pitch dark, his heart hammering. Even when Ghost leapt up onto the bed to nuzzle at his face, he could not shake his deep sense of terror. He dared not go back to sleep. Instead, he had climbed the wall and walked, restless, until he saw the light of the dawn off to the east. It was only a dream. I am a brother of the Night's Watch now, not a frightened boy. Jon thinks this is only a dream, but could it actually be a vision of the future? Why not? Jojen dreams about the future, and we know that this is a story where the Night King has zombie powers, and he is about to attack Winterfell. We could certainly end up with a situation where Jon is down in the crypts and his ancestors start climbing out of their graves. We will come back to this idea. So who is this Greenseer? Well, it would make sense if it was a Stark, and Theon gives us this piece of information about the construction of the crypts. The steps go farther down, observed Lady Dustin. There are lower levels, older. The lowest level is partly collapsed, I hear. I have never been down there. He pushed the door open and led them out into a long vaulted tunnel where mighty granite pillars marched 2 by 2 into blackness. The lower levels are older. That's strange. Why would you bury the earliest occupants further down? Just to make life slightly easier for your descendants? No, it's probably because every Stark is buried in the tomb adjacent to his father, and the oldest Stark is a Greenseer hooked up to the root system of the Heart Tree, far underground in the lowest level of the crypts. This also explains why the lowest level is partly collapsed. The result of the collapse is that the Greenseer is protected and hidden and kept secret. Who is this ancient Stark Greenseer exactly? To figure it out, we need to decipher the ancient legends of Westeros, and it is actually helpful to look at the ancient legends of Essos first. The author of the books loves writing parallel events that happen at roughly the same time, far away, and the ancient legends of Essos are a bit easier to decipher. We have 3 relevant ancient legends that come from Essos: the story of Azor Ahai from Ashai, the story of the Second Moon from Karth, and the story of the Bloodstone Emperor from the Great Empire of the Dawn. These 3 stories are actually 3 versions of the same event. Here is Davos learning the legend of Azor Ahai. 100 days and 100 nights he labored on the third blade, and as it glowed white-hot in the sacred fires, he summoned his wife. Nisa, Nisa, he said to her, for that was her name, bear your breast, and know that I love you best of all that is in this world. She did this thing, why I cannot say, and Azor Ahai thrust the smoking sword through her living heart. It is said that her cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon, but her blood and her soul and her strength and her courage all went into the steel. Such is the tale of the forging of Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. Here is Dany learning the Carthene legend of the second moon and the birth of dragons. He told me the moon was an egg, Khaleesi, the Lysene girl said. Once there were 2 moons in the sky, but one wandered too close to the sun and cracked from the heat. 1,000 dragons poured forth and drank the fire of the sun. That is why dragons breathe flame. One day the other moon will kiss the sun too, and then it will crack, and the dragons will return. According to the legend from Ashai, Nisa's cry of anguish and ecstasy left a crack across the face of the moon. And according to the legend from Karth, there used to be 2 moons, until one of them was cracked and was destroyed. And here is the legend of the Bloodstone Emperor and the Long Night. When the daughter of the Opal Emperor succeeded him as the Amethyst Empress, her envious younger brother cast her down and slew her, proclaiming himself the Bloodstone Emperor and beginning a reign of terror. In the annals of the further east, it was the blood betrayal, as his usurpation is named, that ushered in the age of darkness called the Long Night. Like the Valyrians, and like ancient royalty from the real world, the ruling family of the great Empire of the Dawn was probably incestuous to keep their blood pure, marrying brother to sister when possible. So the Amethyst Empress was not just the sister of the Bloodstone Emperor, she was also his wife. The story of the Bloodstone Emperor killing his sister and causing the Long Night is really the story of Azor Ahai killing his wife and causing the second moon to explode, which caused the Long Night. And during the Long Night, they were able to create the first dragons. So we have 3 versions of the legend of Azor Ahai, and each gives us a piece of the truth. Now let's do the same thing with the ancient legends of Westeros, the Last Hero, Brandon the Builder, and the Night King. Once again, the author loves his parallel writing, and it seems that these 3 stories are actually 3 versions of the same story. And the Last Hero, Brandon the Builder, and the Night King are all the same person. Here is the legend of the Last Hero. Now these were the days before the Andals came, and long before the women fled across the narrow sea from the cities of the Rhoyne, and the 100 kingdoms of those times were the kingdoms of the first men, who had taken these lands from the children of the forest. Yet here and there, in the fastness of the woods, the children still lived in their wooden cities and hollow hills, and the faces in the trees kept watch. So as cold and death filled the earth, the Last Hero determined to seek out the children, in the hopes that their ancient magics could win back what the armies of men had lost. He set out into the Deadlands with a sword, a horse, a dog, and a dozen companions. For years he searched, until he despaired of ever finding the children of the forest in their secret cities. One by one his friends died, and his horse, and finally even his dog. And his sword froze so hard the blade snapped when he tried to use it, and the others smelled the hot blood in him and came silent on his trail, stalking him with packs of pale white spiders, big as hounds. All Bran could think of was Old Nan's story of the others and the Last Hero, hounded through the white woods by dead men and spiders big as hounds. He was afraid for a moment, until he remembered how that story ended. "The children will help him," he blurted. "The children of the forest." According to Old Nan, the children of the forest helped the Last Hero defeat the White Walkers, and the World of Ice and Fire elaborates further. How the Long Night came to an end is a matter of legend, as all such matters of the distant past have become. In the north, they tell of a Last Hero who sought out the intercession of the children of the forest, his companions abandoning him or dying one by one as they faced ravenous giants, cold servants, and the others themselves. Alone, he finally reached the children, despite the efforts of the White Walkers, and all the tales agree this was a turning point. Thanks to the children, the first men of the Night's Watch banded together and were able to fight and win the battle for the dawn, the last battle that broke the endless winter and sent the others fleeing to the icy north. Now, 6,000 years later, the wall made to defend the realms of men is still manned by the sworn brothers of the Night's Watch, and neither the others nor the children have been seen in many centuries. This, of course, sounds similar to Bran's current story. Bran sought out the help of the children of the forest and the Three-Eyed Raven to fight the White Walkers, and Bran was guided north by Jojen, who was following his green dreams. Next we have Brandon the Builder. It is important to remember that we learned from Ygritte that wildling songs can refer to Greenseers as giants, specifically the song, "I Am the Last of the Giants." There were tears on Ygritte's cheeks when the song ended. "Why are you weeping?" Jon asked. "It was only a song. There are hundreds of giants. I've just seen them." "Oh, hundreds," she said furiously. "You know nothing, Jon Snow. Jon Snow knows nothing. The song is referring to the Greenseers of the Children of the Forest, not actual giants. So, giants equals Greenseers. Now, here is the legend of Brandon the Builder. In legend, Brandon the Builder had used giants to help raise Winterfell, but Jon did not want to confuse the issue. The greatest castle of the north is Winterfell, the seat of the Starks since the Dawn Age. Legend says that Brandon the Builder raised Winterfell after the generation-long winter known as the Long Night to become the stronghold of his descendants, the Kings of Winter. Maester Childer's Winter's Kings, or The Legends and Lineages of the Starks of Winterfell, contains part of a ballad alleged to tell of the time Brandon the Builder sought the aid of the children while raising the wall. He was taken to a secret place to meet with them, but could not at first understand their speech, which was described as sounding like the song of stones in a brook, or the wind through leaves, or the rain upon the water. Legend has it that the giants helped raise the wall, using their great strength to wrestle the blocks of ice into place. There may be some truth to this, though the stories make the giants out to be far larger and more powerful than they truly were. These same legends also say that the children of the forest, who did not themselves build walls of either ice or stone, would contribute their magic to the construction. But the legends, as always, are of dubious value. Brandon the Builder built both Winterfell and the wall, and he had help from giants, which are really Greenseers. There is even a story about Brandon being taken to a secret place to meet with the children of the forest when he sought their help, which sounds a whole lot like our point of view character Bran being taken to a secret place to get help from the children of the forest. And that secret place was a cave far underground with a Greenseer hooked up to the root system of a weirwood tree. This also fits with the story of the last hero seeking out the children of the forest in their secret cities and eventually finding them. It sounds like what really happened is that Brandon the Builder, aka the last hero, had some green dreams that told him to journey north, and eventually he found a cave with a Greenseer, a cave that would eventually become the lowest level of the Crypts of Winterfell. And like the legend says, the Greenseer helped Brandon build Winterfell and the wall. Finally, here is the legend of the Night King. The oldest of these tales concern the legendary Night's King, the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who was alleged to have bedded a sorceress pale as a corpse and declared himself a king. For 13 years, the Night's King and his corpse queen ruled together before King of Winter Brandon the Breaker, in alliance it is said with the king beyond the wall, Jorman, brought them down. Thereafter, he obliterated the Night's King's very name from memory. And according to Old Nan, he was a Stark of Winterfell, and who can say, mayhaps his name was Brandon. Mayhaps he slept in this very bed, in this very room. Contrary to what the characters in the books think, we know that the Night King is alive. He is obviously the main antagonist going into Season 8. And we know that this entire narrative of the last hero being miraculously saved by the children of the forest and then forming the Night's Watch and defeating the White Walkers with their help is bullshit. Bran looked back in time and saw the children of the forest create the White Walkers, and Leaf explained that it was a desperate act of war to stop the humans from cutting down any more weirwood trees. So let's try to figure out what might have actually happened based on these three legends, assuming the tales are misleading, knowing what we know about the origin of the White Walkers, and assuming that the Night King, the last hero, and Brandon the Builder are all the same person. Here's a more likely version of events. 8,000 years ago, there was a guy named Brandon Stark. He was lured north by green dreams and found a cave with the children of the forest and a female Greenseer hooked up to the roots of a weirwood tree like the three-eyed raven. He fell in love with the Greenseer, had sex with her, and got her pregnant. We will call her the Night Queen. Then the children of the forest tied Brandon down to the Night Queen's tree and shoved a piece of dragon glass into his heart, which probably just served as a sort of magical conduit, like the wands in Harry Potter, for either the children of the forest or for the Night Queen herself to alter his DNA and transform him into the first White Walker. At the same moment, on the other side of the world, following the author's pattern of parallel writing, Azor Ahai shoved his magic sword into his wife's heart to alter her DNA and transform her into the first dragon rider. And in that moment of crazy levels of blood magic going on, the second moon was destroyed by the red comet, and the dust from the explosion filled the sky and blocked out the sun for a generation. With the sun blocked out, Brandon was able to stay living above ground even though he had been transformed into a White Walker. He built a castle to protect the Night Queen, and Brandon Stark, at the beginning of the Long Night, aka the Long Winter, took the title King of Winter, aka King of Night, aka the Night King. Then he formed the Night's Watch to defend his castle and his queen, a group of 13 White Walkers, and Brandon named his castle Winterfell. And that's probably why the Night's Watch oath refers to the Watchers on the walls, plural, and not the wall. The Night's Watch was originally formed to defend the walls of Winterfell. We are told that the Night King was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, but he was really just the 13th member. In the first camera shot ever of the Night King in the show, we see him with 12 other White Walkers, and the White Walkers are dressed in black, like brothers of the Night's Watch. This could be a coincidence, but it seems that these 13 White Walkers are the original 13 members of the Night's Watch, and it is the same 13 men from the story of The Last Hero. The 12 companions of The Last Hero didn't really die. They were transformed into White Walkers. The Last Hero wasn't being chased by White Walkers and then miraculously saved by the Children of the Forest. The children basically lured him into a trap and turned him into the first White Walker. Rather than creating the Night's Watch to defeat the White Walkers, as we are told, the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers, and they are the Night's Watch. And if the Night King built Winterfell, then he has a potentially huge advantage in the upcoming battle. He may know secrets about the castle that no one else knows. Dany was able to take Meereen by sending a small number of men through the sewers to infiltrate the city. The Night King may do something similar with Winterfell. We may see zombies or White Walkers inside the castle unexpectedly. After some number of years, the Long Night ended, and this would have forced the White Walkers to live at the Wall. In fact, this may have been the real reason for building the Wall in the first place. The Wall probably provides enough cold and protection from the sun's radiation to make it a decent summer home for White Walkers. And this is where the stories of the Night King living at the Night Fort come from, and why the Night's Watch moved from Winterfell to the Wall. At some point, the pregnant Night Queen would have given birth, probably to a son named Brandon, and he would have become the new Lord of Winterfell in the Night King's absence. But then something strange happened. The Night King was attacked by a combined force of wildlings and soldiers from Winterfell, defeated and banished to the north. It seems that he may have been betrayed by his queen. But why would she do that? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Night Queen is a time traveler. She can change the timeline however she pleases. So while we don't know the real details, whatever happened in the ancient past, the Night Queen wanted it to happen. And the same is true for literally all the events of the story so far. The Night Queen wants everything to happen how it has happened. She wants the Night King to attack Winterfell. She wants Jon and Dany there with the dragons defending Winterfell. She wants Bran to be a powerful Greenseer. Whatever her ultimate goal is, it is probably bad, which in the world of George R.R. Martin means things along the lines of war, slavery, religious extremism, racism, genocide, that kind of thing. And it will be up to the point of view characters, mainly Jon and Bran, to defeat the Night Queen and achieve peace. Now you may have noticed that the TV show depicts the Night King being created north of the Wall and not at Winterfell. As silly as it sounds, that might be reading too much into things. The writers were probably just trying to make it clear with zero dialogue that he was created a long time ago and that the climate was totally different by using a recognizable landmark that is currently covered in snow north of the Wall. Now, I should probably mention that most people believe that the Night Queen was actually also a White Walker herself, and she is described as having pale skin as white as the moon and bright blue eyes. But I think it is more likely that she is actually an albino Greenseer, just like the Three-Eyed Raven was in the books. I assume there are not a lot of albino actors, and that would have been really annoying to do for the TV show. In the next video, I will talk about the Night Queen's plan for enslaving the human race and how she will be defeated in the end.